Hello everyone, Pulse here and welcome back to another episode of Delving Deep ESO. Now today we're going to talk a little bit about Elder Scrolls Online at PAX Prime 2013, some of the tidbits that were shared at this most recent gaming convention, and as usual I'll end the whole thing with a little bit of my own opinions on the info and the PAX Prime 2013 show as a whole when concerning Elder Scrolls Online. So first up, let's talk about the reactions and the impressions coming off of PAX Prime. Well, in all honesty, it was pretty slim on the info front, and for whatever reason, sadly enough, there's just nothing there, and it was pretty much just gameplay across the board. It is most of the reactions, people going in and playing the early zones which they provided. This time it was Ebonheart packed, but still it was just more of the same. Luckily, the impressions for the most part are positive when it comes to pretty much anything in the game. The combat still looks and feels great. It's supposed to be a little bit more weighty. The visuals are still impressing people who get to actually play it for themselves, and the world that Zenimax has crafted in Elder Scrolls Online just really is heavy with the feeling of Elder Scrolls and seems to lend itself pretty well to grabbing hold of people and then pulling them out to explore every little detail. I'm glad to see that the impressions are still good and that it seems to still be fun and engaging, but I must admit I was quite upset that ZeniMax didn't really follow up on their Gamescom announcements with more details or footage or something, especially because I feel like they needed to offset the negativity that they've really garnered as of late. Luckily, there were some tidbits that came through in a pretty damn good Tamriel Foundry interview. So first up, they revealed a system called Veteran Points. Now, Paul Sage described them in a way that kind of made me think of them like a heroic points, or I believe it's called heroic badges or something like that in World of Warcraft. But instead of it just being like you run the heroic dungeon and you get your token or what have you by doing it over and over or dailies, it's supposed to be that Veteran Points will be rewarded in a different way. Most specifically, he mentioned something like challenges. Some of the examples he said were that you'll go into a dungeon setting and maybe one of the challenges they'll give you is like a timed dungeon run, or maybe you'll go through and there'll be like new secondary objectives you need to complete in order to get your veteran points. This is fairly exciting as they could potentially do a lot more kind of interesting and unorthodox challenge types to kind of break up the seriousness of the dingy dungeon environment or the monotonous dungeon environment if you run them all the time. And they could use this as a way to kind of just portray a little bit more fun and a little bit more silliness, I guess, into the dungeon environments by giving these challenge objectives that really could just cover a whole different slew of kind of content types, so they can provide quite a lot by that. In addition, it was kind of mentioned, it was a little bit iffy during the interview as to what these will be used for, but it was kind of mentioned that veteran points will be rewarded through other types of content beyond like these challenge runs. But the whole system really just seems to be kind of like this: once you hit level 50, you can then get veteran points through multitudes of different content to continue progressing and customizing your character beyond that level 50 cap. Now, as I mentioned, we don't really know what they're going to be used for, but it really seems like it's going to be one of the more abundant sort of customization points or tools once you get past level 50. So I expect to see a lot of veteran points beyond the level 50 cap. Let's see, one of the other things that was mentioned around the same time as the veteran points, they kind of went hand in hand, but what they were talking about kind of branched off, so I feel like it should be mentioned in two separate things. Paul Sage kind of mentioned that there will be, for sure, 60 normal mode dungeons in the game upon launch, and then there will be 6 master dungeons as well, which he kind of mentioned in a way that made it seem like they would also be upon launch. From what Zenimax has said previously, it would kind of appear that these 16 normal mode dungeons are also going to have heroic versions plus that original 16, so now you're up to like 32 if they make them different enough. And then you have the 6 master dungeons, which are available at level 50, and that's quite a substantial number of dungeons to progress through. My one concern, as I kind of mentioned, is that they need to make sure that the heroic versions and the normal versions are different enough that it doesn't seem boring, or like you go into the heroic and you're like, damn, I already did this. It's not really a different dungeon. You can't categorize it as such. Finally, the last bit of interesting detail that was revealed during the interview is Paul Sage kind of let loose that there is going to be a third guild in the game, and as you would expect, another guild skill line. These guys are called the Undaunted. Now, from what Paul Sage said, it would seem that, like the other guilds, this one kind of has its own themed quest or storyline tied to it that the player character will have to do and progress through in order to become part of the guild in the story sense, and then over time unlock the full skill, the skill line related to that guild. Now, the Undaunted are apparently tied to dungeons, and from what was said, they're also supposed to be slightly comedic in the way that they're written when you're in the dungeon environment, and when you're actually running alongside them, the storyline through the dungeon and the escapades they go on, it's supposed to be a little bit funny and a little bit more lighthearted than maybe the other guilds and their storylines. Finally, it was noted that the Undaunted will also be different because they're going to, just the way that they work, kind of be rewarding players with points that go into the guild skill line just by doing the dungeons themselves, because you're going to be doing the dungeons as you play the game anyway. And the way that the Undaunted work, as long as you kind of started out their storyline, you're going to be rewarded in a way that's maybe a little bit easier than the other guilds, simply because you can go into the dungeons with the Undaunted kind of with you, and you'll be getting points towards that skill line. So you'll be rewarded extra kind of when you're in the dungeons when it comes to the Undaunted and the guild skill line related to those. Now, beyond these things that were kind of mentioned in the interview, he also said something along the lines of new beta keys being sent out, which I can confirm have been sent out by the time this is hitting the channel. Hopefully you guys got one. It would be really cool if I got one. He also said that adventure zones are still on the fence as to if they'll actually be ready for release. He kind of gave the typical answer of, well, you know what, when it comes to development, you can never be sure kind of answer, which I think is a total cop-out. If they don't think it's going to be, they need to say no now. I really think that if they are that unsure, that they need to move some shit around and get them in the game by launch, because that's one of the big things that are supposed to hold people beyond the end game. And with that announcement of a subscription fee and the payment model and all that stuff that they've had to deal with lately, they really need to get that in the game ASAP, in my opinion. Now, so this kind of leads me along to what was ESO showing at PAX Prime 2013. Was it any good? Well, in all honesty, I'm a little bit let down. With all the backlash that they have received lately, they really needed to come out swinging, in my opinion, with something that could just really shut us all up. The low-level gameplay that they've been showing just isn't going to impress anymore. We've already seen it time and time again, and I'm glad that we've got some of these tidbits, but the thing is, I noticed when I was looking for info and following this through the PAX Prime kind of weekend, was that just the info coming out about this game was non-existent almost, and for the most part, all the things we talked about came from one interview from Tamriel Foundry with Paul Sage. So it's a little bit weird. Why are they doing this? I don't know. It's a bit shocking to me, I have to say, that Zenimax would be holding ESO back so much at a convention that's more about the fans than it is about sort of the industry, because E3 and all these other ones have a tendency to be very themed towards the industry and the publishers and all that stuff. And even though we get all excited about seeing it, for a while now, it's not been very hands-on with the fans. And I feel like PAX is a good one to let the fans really get the new stuff. Let them see what it is that you're making firsthand. And I also think that it's kind of a letdown because they were on this string of announcements, and I think they didn't take it far enough. They came in hard at QuakeCon and showed off that pretty good gameplay. They came in at Gamescom, and then they decided to go on with the announcement for the payment model, which was another big question mark for everybody. And then I think they really needed to come in at PAX and show us just something really, really good. I mean, the players watching this game at this point, they just absolutely need more to truly convince them that ESO is going to be worth paying for and worth playing, with such a high barrier of entry with the $60, and then that rather high cost that's going to come after the initial month. They just really need to convince everybody, because there's so much negativity around, and PAX was it. I don't know what they were thinking. They really needed to come out swinging there as well. I have to say, I think that for the most part, I'm sad, but I'm glad to see that the impressions are still good. Hopefully at this point, I think what Zenimax must be doing is they, for whatever reason, just didn't think PAX was going to work for them, or maybe they had some issues in the background. Maybe they fully intended to announce and show something good, but it's a little bit weird how little info came out. I have to wonder what was going on in the background for that to be the case. Hopefully it's because they've got something like great right around the corner, and they're just, for whatever reason, holding it back, and they didn't think PAX was the right moment, and they're waiting for that perfect moment to blow us all away, and really just quiet all this babble about subscription model and just all these little things that people are talking about when they talk about Elder Scrolls Online now. Hopefully they've just got something right around the corner to shut us all up. Yeah, well, I think that's it, guys, for me today on this episode of Delving Deep ESO. Let me know what you guys think about their showing at PAX Prime 2013. What do you guys think of the veteran point system, and what maybe it could all entail? And what do you guys think of the new guild that was kind of leaked / announced with the Undaunted? In addition to that, make sure to check out the Tamriel Foundry interview for yourself if you'd like to hear Paul Sage talk for yourself, and maybe there's some tidbits I missed there. There should be a link down in the description. And thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully you found this video somewhat enjoyable and informative. If you liked my blathering even a little bit, I would very much appreciate a thumbs up, a subscribe, a comment down below on pretty much anything Elder Scrolls Online, anything massively multiplayer online game related, or gaming and gaming industry related at all, really. Thanks again for watching. This has been Pulse, and I will see you on the next one. Bye.